Live from Pacific Junction Hotel, Girth Radio.
All right. Thank you, Stefan, for coming in. My name is Sammy Younan. I'm your host of My Summer Lair. You're on tour with the Happy Film.
Hi, Sam. Well, I mean, it's going to sound bad, but actually very happy to be here in Toronto and very happy to be on tour. I was originally not so much looking forward to it because there's just so many planes to take every single day, a new city. But it's actually been pleasurable. For one thing, the planes haven't been late. I was not forcefully removed from any of them.
See? So you're doing good there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty good for your track record, too. You're a bit of a troublemaker.
Well, just a little bit. But all the shows, all the screenings have been sold out with audiences just really being engaged. I mean, we've sometimes had an hour and a half, 2 hours Q&As afterwards. People literally did not want to go home after the film. And I've had really good discussions, which is often very difficult. Like, if you have many hundred people around, things tend to stay on the surface. Mm-hmm. But we've actually had some really open discussions. Like, no, I loved it. Yeah.
So the Happy Film is making people happy.
Well, I have to admit, we are actually starting the film with a line that says, "This film will not make you happy."
Yeah. Is that for the audience or is that for you? Because the project is about you too.
The project is very much about me, but of course, one of the reasons that we made it is so we would make a piece of work that would be relatable, where people can see themselves. And the warning towards the audience is, partly flippant, but there is a good part that's actually serious. Because, of course, I do think that watching somebody, in this case, me, going through that struggle of making themselves happier, just watching that on a movie screen will not make you happier.
Yeah.
It just won't. In the same way that most self-improvement books don't really seem to work. And I don't think it's because they necessarily tell you terrible things. It's because the engagement is too flimsical.
Mm-hmm.
It's too flimsy. It's not engaged enough. But what I do see is that if that the film is for a good number of people, and I have this in writing because people actually write me long letters afterwards.
That's cool.
That they sort of like see it as a first step to probably be more engaged in something, or avoids the kind of avenues that I went down that clearly didn't work or worked only a little bit.
But that's the thing with like self-examination, trying to figure out like what your journey was, trying to figure out what makes you happier and what makes you happier. It's like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of trial and error. And it's not something you just arrive at something kind of simple, like I like pizza, so I'm just going to eat pizza all the time.
Yes, sadly, eating pizza all the time is not going to make me happy. Yeah,
that should probably be like a DVD extra or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, it's for us in the film team, it's been a 7-year journey with, kind of ironically, many seriously unhappy periods in the making of the film.
Yeah, your mom passed away.
Yes.
One of your directors passed away.
Yeah. I mean, we pretty much had any catastrophe that you could possibly have in filmmaking and in your personal life happening. And this was uncanny because when I started the film, or when I first had the idea for the film, I was not unhappy. It was not sort of like a self-examination, midlife crisis, or I better do a project to make myself happier. I was actually in very good shape. And as soon as I made the decision, let's make a film about this, things started to go wrong.
Those sometimes works out for film, though. Sometimes the ones that have the most adversity, they kind of come out a little bit stronger on the opposite end. It's a weird maxim for films. I don't understand it.
We totally found it. It's even true on a very specific level. Let's say, we had a lot of footage, and then in the edit room, almost anything that was overtly positive was totally boring. And I mean, we saw it ourselves. Literally, that I'll give you an example. Like, we spent some serious expense for the whole film team to go to Austria to interview all my brothers and sisters. And I specifically didn't want to be part of those interviews because I wanted them to speak freely. I didn't want to have the pressure, or they have to only say good things. Well, it turned out they only did say good things, which I was privately pleased about, but it was completely unusable for the film because it just was this boring.
Yeah.
If they would have said, like, what an unbelievable asshole I was as a young kid and how I cut them with a knife, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. That would be another good DVD extra too.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's something to, I think there's something what you're saying is just because even sometimes with some social media and stuff like that, you find that people that are overly positive all the time just either don't get it or naive, or like, it's just boring. It's just sterile, I guess. That's the better word I'm looking for.
I think there is in psychology, it's called the negativity bias. And there's a fairly good explanation for it. We have a small little part of the brain called the amygdala that's basically a shortcut for negative feelings. And it really was developed by evolution for times when we lived actually dangerous lives. Our prehistoric ancestors had basically, if they didn't see the tiger, they
You're
were
in trouble.
dead.
Yeah.
While if they didn't see the banana, it was fine. You saw another banana a little bit later. So positive feelings never got that kind of shortcut, but negative feelings do get that sort of shortcut. And I can see it. I mean, you mentioned social media before. I can look at a blog post about work that we did, and there might be 100 positive comments.
Correct.
But I'm gonna zoom in on the 2 negative ones, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna really sort of like, those 2 are gonna stick in my mind. And actually, maybe for your viewers, it might be interesting because there's a guy, really sort of like the father of positive psychology. His name is Marty Seligman, and he developed a little technique that basically is extremely non-time consuming, where he says, at the end of the day, put a little booklet next on your bedside table and just write 3 things down that work. And they can be big things or small things, but just 3 things that worked that day. And this is, takes under a minute.
Right.
But it actually fights successfully exactly that. That's the stuff that comes to our mind when we fall asleep are the stuff that didn't work, because that comes automatically. But there much likely were also things that did work, but they sort of like tend to be in the background. And he has very good scientific evidence that this works, how it works, and that it works.
That makes sense, yeah. Because, I mean, part of it, too, is like it's gratitude. This is simplifying it, but when we get unhappy or we're sad about things or whatever, there's a lack of gratitude as well. It's that thing, first world problems and things like that. Like, there's a lot that we can be grateful for.
That's also in psychology a very big thing. And actually, strange that you mentioned it. One area where I used to be extremely bad, and I think I got a little bit better at it.
Gratitude?
Or gratitude, yes. And it's a funny thing because my mom, it was like a saying of my mom, there's so much that we can be thankful for. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like, she said it so often, it became this line that, went in and out of my ears. I just got used to mom saying that.
Yeah.
Until I sort of rediscovered what a big deal it is in positive psychology, that just this idea that you look around and sort of like see what the good things are that are around. Yeah. I think there is one that is different but combines nicely with it, which is low expectations.
Yeah.
Like if you look at sort of like research about countries and their happiness, Denmark is always number 1 or number 2. Canada is actually doing extremely well as well. But And I could never really figure out, because I've been to Copenhagen and I've been to sort of like Northern European countries, and I could never figure out what the difference would be really between the Danes and, let's say, the Dutch or the Swedes.
Right.
And when I talked to Danes about it, they said, well, I think our difference to those neighboring countries is really that we kind of count on most things not working, and are incredibly surprised when one thing, and then grateful for the things when they actually do work. But our expectations are lower than that. And I think that that's a very healthy attitude to have.
That's kind of counter. This is simplifying it, but it's kind of counter to a lot of the American mentality, where they kind of shoot for the moon and they expect big things and they want to do big things, and then they get frustrated when there's not that momentum, that there's not that growth, there's not that, you know what I'm saying? Because you live in New York City and you've been there for quite some time, so you kind of know the that whole American dream and just like taking on the challenge.
But I think that you can still put a big goal into your life, but then go for the journey and make it not that much about the end product.
Yeah, because if everything is like hanging on the end product, like if your whole goal is to like write a novel and you do it for like a whole year, and at the end of that year you have a crap novel and it doesn't sell and nobody reads it, then it's like...
I mean, if you wrote a novel in a year, you're doing pretty well already.
But that's what goes back to gratitude, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just the recognition, right? That things we overlook. But kind of connected to gratitude is the vulnerability. Because in the film, too, you're very vulnerable. There's a lot of, like, awkward moments. No, I guess awkward moments for the viewer.
Yeah, awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you kind of put yourself out there. And to have that courage to be vulnerable, you find there's a lot of value to being vulnerable?
But I have to say that I didn't really set out to be vulnerable. I set out to be honest. And
Is there a difference?
Well, I would say that I can be honest if I'm a super strong person. I can be honest about being super strong so that I don't fake it and be sort of like fake vulnerable. But like the goal really was to make an honest film. That was a goal. And there was some self-interest in that too, because I actually had this sort of a eureka moment with my students, that we had a guest speaker, but it's just like, my 20 students. And there was a guy coming in called Quentin Crisp, who was this very old, at the time he passed away since, very old British gay man who I think was one of the first openly gay persons. He was in prison for it. There were films made about it. Sting wrote that song about him, I'm an Englishman in New York. And he was a very much an Oscar Wilde kind of character. He looked a little bit like Oscar Wilde, but he also spoke in quotes. I mean, you could take notes and you could quote him all the time. And one of the things he said, that he used to tell journalists that everybody is interesting. And the journalists came back to him and said, that's not really true, Mr. Crisp. There are so many boring people out there. And he had to think about it. And then he said, well, okay, I'm amending it. Everybody who is honest is interesting. And that sort of hit me like a little lightning bolt.
That's an amazing quote.
It just, I felt, well, as a designer, of course, we want to make interesting things. So if I'm just making honest design, then that would be interesting. And it influenced, at the time we were working on a book, but it came out shortly thereafter, called Made You Look. And that book is now, I don't know, almost 20 years old, which in the design world is basically 200 years old.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Dinosaur bones.
Yeah. And that book sells still really, really well. And I think that and in some of the projects in it really do look dated. I mean, they have to look dated. They were made 20 years ago. But I think that the text survives the times. And ever since then, and of course I was extremely aware of it doing the film, that if we are not completely honest in what we are doing, it won't work at all. It just also, it won't be interesting.
And there's a voyeuristic aspect to all of that too, because I think that's also connected to happiness. As much as the audience is kind of like peeping in on your journey for happiness and how you're trying to make yourself happy, we also kind of do that all sometimes either subconsciously or consciously. We're trying to check to other people and like, so you went to this island destination, that makes you happy? I should go there too, right? Like there is kind of a voyeuristic aspect to happiness that was kind of interesting as a sub-theme in the film.
I think that you call it voyeuristic. I would say I would call it relatable. And we also saw that with the Happy Show, like there was a side project that came out of the film that actually was also shown in Toronto here.
Mm-hmm.
And where, you know, the show was hilariously successful. It, by now over 500,000 people saw it. And I think it was mostly connected to relatability. Because I think there's so many people who go to a museum and they see contemporary art, and they, unless they really have a very high degree of involvement in what happened in contemporary art in the last 50 years, a lot of it is opaque. And the Happy Show, and I think that the film now, specifically when I see the reaction of audiences, is sort of similar, that you can relate to it. And sometimes in a very surprising way. I mean, I had a woman yesterday who was, my guess would be definitely in her 60s, maybe late 60s, tell me how she related to it. You know, that she saw herself in there. So and then of course the regular audience is very young. You know, I'm now in my beginning 50s, but I would say if I look out at the audience after a screening during the question and answer period, it's often an audience in their 20s, and they seem to be able to relate. So I think that. Ultimately, I think that's a center part of why we go to the movies in general. And I have to admit, I always thought that this film doesn't particularly have to be seen in the theater, that you might as well watch it, at home or download it or so, because it's not like, the gigantic,
there's no explosions,
budget, exactly
race cars.
There you need to see every single detail. But I was wrong. I think that it actually is wonderful to see it in the theater. And it looks, of course, nice on the big screen. But probably more important than that, it's the ability to watch something in the comfort with other people.
The community.
Yes. Yeah. That just does make a difference. And just also the fact it's dark, your cell phone is off, you're not going to go easily just to the loo when you want to, you're not going to, have another screen running. I recently saw some numbers on how many screens people normally watch. I think it's 2.8 right now in the US.
Wow.
So if somebody watches a TV show, they have almost regularly 2 other screens up.
Like a laptop or a phone or
Yeah. Well, in this case, both.
Yeah.
Or a tablet and the phone. And that's a totally different experience. That's sort of like a jumping from one thing to the other, sort of like a frazzled experience. It's just different. Yeah.
That almost feels lonelier too. It's like you're just surrounding yourself with a lot of like warm glow from all the screens, but it doesn't feel warm at all.
I mean, I know that if I'm in a situation where I'm that frazzled, where I do this and this and this and this and this, it's not the kind of situation, it's not the time that I find fulfilling or actually even fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like I almost would describe it, it's sort of like a non-time. It's time that's filled with something, but it's not filled with anything substantial. It's sort of the equivalent of of the highway off ramp and the Pizza Hut and and the gas stations as a non-space.
Yeah.
This is sort of like the non-time. It's not particularly draggy, meaning I don't think that it necessarily brings me down, but I could also call it a waste of time.
Yeah, it's very similar to just like fast food, where you just stop for 30 seconds, you shove something in your mouth, you don't really even taste it or chew it, and then it's like, there you go, shut up stomach, let's go, I got work to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a meal at all, it's nothing, it was just like, just there.
Exactly.
With the Happy film, did it impact or sculpt your sense of humor at all?
I don't think that the film sculpted my sense of humor. I mean, I think that, again, from audiences, there is definitely quite some laughter in the film.
Especially
much of it
the jumping around as a bunny and
well, the jumping around the bunny really is not even in the film. It's literally just in the trailer.
yeah.
But I'm not sure. Let's say I'm not good enough of a humorist to put jokes in the film. So the funny moments in the film really come out of life. They're not like written jokes. But of course, we did want to make the film also funny. Like I would say that it was a big goal of mine that the film should also be, of us really, I should say, that the film should also be entertaining. Like, I had no desire to make a film that's, just spinach and maybe it's good for you, but you're just that you feel like you have to sit through this now. And it's also like, the kind of films, I mean, of course you make the kind of film that you like yourself. Mm-hmm. So if I dedicate an hour and a half either to go to the film or to go to the movies or to download something and watch it properly, I don't just want to learn something. I also want to have a good time.
Did that sense of time, you mentioned like the hour and a half, because with graphic design, which you kind of primarily do, you have a short, quote unquote, a short amount of time to convey an idea. Mm-hmm. Like when you're working with Levi's or when you're doing an album cover for Jay-Z or Rolling Stones, you have a short amount of time to convey an idea. Did you feel a little bit more free to have an hour and a half, or did you feel the same kind of pressure, I guess, to kind of convey an idea quickly and efficiently too? Because that's the best graphic design, if you can do it quickly and efficiently.
I found it a total pain in the ass.
Okay.
The telling a story through time, I found it unbelievably difficult. I think we got better as we went along, but I think there was one huge surprise, which was how dictatorial filmmaking is, because ultimately every viewer gets exactly the same story. While, let's say, when we design a picture book or when we design an exhibition, we can design it in a way that there is one layer that somebody who just leaves through a book gets, and then another layer that somebody who spends half an hour with the book gets, and another layer where somebody really wants to read it from cover to cover and spends a day with the book gets. And so, and we can design it for that. Same, of course, with an exhibition. In the film, you're making all these decisions for everybody. And I actually was quite uncomfortable with that. And I had overestimated, I think, because I do quite a lot of talks, so I know how to, I thought I knew, like, how to tell a coherent story to an audience over an hour and a half. And so I thought, how difficult can it be if you do it on film?
Right.
Very different. Very, very different. Yeah, there was a huge learning curve there.
Yeah, because the narrative structure for a film would be different than it would be for a talk.
Very. Yeah.
And with the talk too, you have the immediate interaction with the audience.
Exactly. And that is so important. Like I learned a lot during the film, but there is stuff that you can do in a talk that works completely because you are there and you're physically there, that you can never do in a film. In a film, it would be unbelievably boring. Like nobody wants to watch that. So there is, there's just huge differences, as there should be, because it's a different medium.
You financed the film through the talks, though, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, yeah. Now we had basically this whole thing kind of stood on three legs. So I did talks about the non-existing film. I got paid for these talks, and the money went directly into the production of the film. Then we started this exhibition that where we could also some of the more difficult or higher production value graphic shots. We also did them for the exhibition, so we found museums who would pay for that production that we could then also use in the film. And of course, what we tried out stuff, I could try out stuff in the talks and see what the audience reaction is, and then make a decision, should it also be in the exhibition or also in the film. So it was sort of a neat, the film was the core, but it was wonderful to see that none of them would have happened without the other. I mean, the film had so many problems that without the constant positive feedback that came from the talks and from a little bit later on then from the exhibition, from the Happy Show, I would have never finished the film. Like, I would have said, okay, this is just too difficult. Like, let's forget about it. But then there was another show opening somewhere and people loved it, and we wrote letters and some of them changed their lives. And I thought, well, maybe we'll give it another shot.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. That's a lot of work, though, to balance all three things. No wonder you're going on sabbaticals.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of work, yes. But I would say the talks for me are no work at all. It's very easy. I like doing them. I travel to often a new city that I might not be on my list of holidays, but it's fantastic to see anyway. The show was relatively easy to do, with some hiccups here and there, but was relatively easy to do, and was very much fun. It was really the film that was the difficulty.
And now that you've had some time and you're taking this film on the road, has your definition or has your approach to happiness kind of continued to evolve and to change, or have you kind of settled into one kind of approach, another list or something like that?
No, continue to evolve and change. And I think I can now actually say, surprisingly and strangely, that I actually did get happier. And that's, meaning, maybe I shouldn't get too deep into it because I don't want to be a spoiler.
Yeah.
But I learned quite a bit. And there is maybe I can say this. From that point of view also, this line at the beginning of the film, this film will not make you happier, is very true, because some of the stuff that that is in the film and that I heard 100 times while editing the film, I still didn't really get it until 6 months after the making of the film.
It's kind of like what you said about your mom saying the same phrase over and over again about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you heard that for years growing up, and then one day you're just like crossing the street or something in New York City, and then it hits you like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Mom was right.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there already that sort of sounds banal, but would actually be unbelievably deep if I would get it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I give you an example. Like, I actually grew up Catholic and I was an altar boy. So I heard this idea of Jesus offering the other cheek hundreds of times. And it was only in Indonesia, strangely explained to me by a Buddhist, that this would actually be a possibility to design your life around. And he, he had this fantastic example of, because in Indonesia, specifically in Bali, you had these big terrorist attacks, and the Bali is pretty much run by village elders, or a form of village elders, and they got together after the big attacks, and these were much more, for the personal lives of the people in Bali, they were much more devastating than, let's say, 9/11, meaning, for one thing, a lot of people died, but also everybody was affected because tourism just died.
Right.
So, like, everybody was deeply affected. And these village elders got together, like, one from every village, and they said, so, number one, we're not going to retaliate. Number two, we are hiring the police from Australia because ours is corrupt, and we have them come in and get all the terrorists, basically. And then number three is, let's think about what we contributed to bring that sort of hatred upon us. Like, what can we do? And they literally 6 months later, they had caught everybody. Most were in prison. I think two were executed, and that was it. And I felt like, if the US would have had such an enlightened strategy after 9/11, we wouldn't have an Iraq war, we wouldn't have a war in Afghanistan. The US could have saved literally trillions of dollars. And of course, I think in the meantime, many more people, even on the US side, meaning on the Iraqi and Afghani side, many more. But even on the US side, more people died in the war than died on 9/11. So it's just, from every point of view that you look at it, humanitarianly, but even financially, it would have been just fantastic.
There was a moment where, after 9/11, where people didn't really, there was some protests and stuff where people didn't want to go to war. I think they were either sick of war, or they felt like what you're saying, which is like, let's not do this, let's not go down this road, let's figure something else out. But of course,
I was, because we did the logo for it, I was at this concert for New York very soon after 9/11, where everybody played and all the firefighters were invited. And I remember there was Hillary at one time on stage and an actor on stage. They both sort of like said, they just said very carefully, let's not rush to conclusions, and they were booed off the stage. Like, there were definitely people out there who wanted it, but so there were a lot of people also who really wanted to see some blood.
yeah, that makes sense. In terms of music now, I'm switching gears because you do a lot of stuff with music. What kind of music are you digging these days?
I was listening to a lot of Shaky Graves.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And The Devil Makes Three. So it's kind of like country,
bluesy, yeah.
whatever you would, country bluesy,
yeah.
with some sort of like newer influences, very recently. But I think the older I get, the more wide my musical tastes are. When I was very young, it was always like just this or just that, and everybody else was an idiot for listening to something else. And it's much, much wider.
And in terms of upcoming for this year, is there any kind of cool projects other than the Happy film that you're touring? Is there something cool to look out for?
Yes.
I'm actually wearing Levi's right now. So
all right.
You did a good job. So, yeah.
But yes, of course. We are doing, meaning, on the more commercial side, we're doing quite some work for Snapchat. We are working on a good number of brands that are close to our heart. Like we only, on the commercial side, we only take on things that we would either use ourselves or at least feel it has a right to be there in this world. And then Jessica Jessica Walsh is my partner in the studio. We are sort of like gearing up on a very large new project on beauty. When we came to it, sort of like from a strange direction, because we just found that whenever we made something more beautiful, let's say whenever we really spent a lot of time on the form, on the formal expression, it just worked so much better. And in that, I did a lot of research on it, and sort of found that throughout human development, literally from the earliest Stone Age until 1918, beauty played a gigantic role in all of human history. And then kind of through some very particular historic movements, it kind of died out. First with the avant-garde, and then some of their ideas were willfully misunderstood by the sort of like economic functionalism that just wanted to make everything fast, as cheap as possible. And we still suffer from that sort of psychotic sameness that came out of that to this very day. So we want to really create a big counter movement. And I'm actually also very closely talking to a place here in Toronto. So on one hand, it's going to be an exhibition, but on the bigger project is really going to be a large organization that takes the ideas of the exhibition and implements them in real life, which would mean basically look at neglected spaces in Toronto and beautify them. And by beautifying them, I really mean formal intent. Because I actually don't even mind the purposefully ugly. What I mind is the lazy.
Yeah.
Or the unconsidered. 99.999% of everything that's ugly in the world is not ugly because somebody said, let's make it ugly.
Yeah.
That stuff is mostly interesting. It's ugly because somebody said somebody didn't give a shit. That's basically it.
Yeah, you need a doorknob here, so we'll just put a doorknob here and then call it a day. But you could have done all kinds of different forms and...
Exactly. The same is true for the gas station. And the same is true for the fast food pizza place. And the same is true for the highway off-ramp and so on and so forth. Yeah. And we just have, I mentioned it, I think the best word I have for it is there's just an incredible amount of non-spaces around now. Just unconsidered spaces. And I think that through modernism, there's also an incredible amount of sameness, like this idea of repetition, that this would somehow be more efficient is a very bad idea. I mean, literally, even like half an hour ago, I forgot, I lost my charger, so I had to quickly run out and get a charger. And when I came back to the hotel, it took me like 20 seconds to figure out, even though I was already on the plaza, which of the four buildings is actually the hotel, because they all look the same.
Yeah.
And it was not the same, meaning it wasn't even the same development. But it's like every idiot architect in the world thinks that it's like right now we can only do bluish glass with a little aluminium line and a little that sort of roof thing on the top. It's just crazy. I feel this needs to be stopped.
That's almost a revolution, though, in a way, because there is like I don't know how you want to phrase it, but it's like there is that acceptance of mediocrity, right? If you can use that to kind of sum up what you're saying, and people are like, well, that's good enough. I think that's what it kind of boils down to. That's good enough. That's a doorknob. That's the off ramp thing, and then that's good enough. I'm gonna go take a nap now. We're done.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that is one, but then there is also a much more institutionalized feeling where even some good architecture companies, they would not have, like you can go to their websites and see, they would not have beauty as a goal as part of their practice. And it won't work without it. Meaning that the tricky thing is that it's actually difficult to do, specifically contemporary beauty. Because I'm not talking about we should now start to copy the Renaissance or Gothic cathedrals or whatever. But it's actually very difficult to do. And all of these people, also in my profession, like, everybody talks about solving clients' problems and all that. Everybody has the same lines. And it's almost confronted when they say, oh, no, we are not about making beautiful things. That's not what we are about. Well, the trouble is that it's actually difficult. And then most of the people who say that's not what we're about actually couldn't do it when asked. And we put the test. I mean, we are hiring. We are looking for people that are formally sophisticated and find that it's much more difficult to find than somebody who has a good idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Like we can, obviously we want that too, but that's very easy to find. To have a good idea is fine, but to actually be able to keep working on this until it's pleasing to the eye, that the composition is right, that the material is correct, that the proportions are fine, that that the form and the shape is good, that the color scheme is good, is actually difficult. And most schools being still stuck in this whole conceptual world from the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, mostly art school teachers my age don't teach it. So. And I think that's all a mistake. And I also felt it myself, that I actually feel better in a beautiful environment and that I behave better in a beautiful environment. And we have the case studies to prove it, meaning where meaning I have one wonderful comparison of the 1970s train station, Penn Station in New York City, versus Grand Central, which is a beautiful 19th century train station. People do behave differently in them. They feel differently in them. I mean, it's palatable.
Yeah, and you can see them taking the photos when the sun is coming through. And,
exactly, yes.
Yeah. What you're talking about, too, is like freedom can sometimes be intimidating when you have to make all these choices. Like you said, you look at the different colors, the fabrics, all these things. When you're a child, like your parents just put out your clothes for you and it's like, this is it. And it's nice and neat. But when you become an adult or teenager or whatever, and then now you have to sit, does this shirt match this? And like, it's a lot of work. And it's like, it's almost sometimes some people, I could see it, like just want to just still have somebody lay it out for them. And it's like, then you're done and then you match and you're good to go.
Well, many choices are a difficult thing. No doubt about it. Yeah. And I do think that we in the West very often make not good formal choices. Meaning, I went with my sister to Rajasthan, and it was amazing. Like literally, in all of Rajasthan, and they have these fancy hotels there because you have all these old palaces were converted into hotels. I would say the only people in Rajasthan that were terribly dressed were the rich tourists. All the locals, from poor to middle class to wealthy, were dressed to the hilt.
Amazing,
completely up. And the guy with the shitty brown shorts in the terrible sandals with the ugly yellow toenails coming out. Yes, that was some CEO in some suite, you know. But also in the hotel, of course, it was almost like a joke because, of course, they have these livered service people, with turbans and fantastically dressed. But also outside, like the poorest of the poor, you see, in these saffron sarongs, gorgeous. Yeah.
Do you like doing these kind of projects more than, like, say, the graphic design work for bigger companies and things like that? Or is it kind of even out or equal out, or is it all the same to you? Or
I think no, it's not all the same to me, but I think I like the mix. We tend to get influenced. The personal projects or the self-initiated projects tend to get influenced by our commercial projects, and vice versa. And you can see it. You can see how our commercial projects had formal influences from the self-initiated ones. And you can see the self-initiated ones, getting influenced by technologies that we could try out in the commercial world. And I have to say, it's totally fine with me because, as a private person, just as Stefan, of course I go in the morning, I have a a talk with a friend, it's personal. I go to the supermarket afterwards, it's commercial. And I might go to see a museum show, and I'm in the art world. And everybody that I know does that, is dealing in all three worlds. So why not do that also in the professional world, that you're dealing in all three worlds? So I don't think that one excludes the other at all.
This all just seems to be kind of work for you.
Yeah, and it's I remember there was a time when we did almost for a long time just all work for the art world, and it became unbelievably difficult because, of course, your own or my own standard when it's pure expression is higher than if I'm within the limitations of a client project that also has, of course, a very functional goal. That's what makes it design. I don't know, I have this bottle in front of me. When we design that, one of the functions of a soft drink bottle would have to be that it sells the soft drink, and it hopefully does it better than the bottle that they used to have until then. But you can do that, of course, in a delightful or in a non-delightful way. And I think that we've all had experiences with commercial products that were delightful. Be it on a motorbike that was a commercial product and had unbelievable fun on it, and we had the opposite. So the quality of that design plays a gigantic role. It can be good or bad.
So going back, just to conclude then, with the happy film, can work make you happy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that work is sort of like one of the main areas where I can really try to bring it up to a level where happinesses can arise then by itself from in between. And the same, of course, is true for all my relationships, from the furthest acquaintance to a lover and everybody in between. And the same would be true for something that's bigger than myself. To be involved in something that's not just about me, but that's really bigger than myself. I think for many people that's religion. For me, it's probably more likely something like the beauty project.
All right, well, that's a good place to end it there. Thank you for coming in and hanging out and talking about design, being happy, discovering happiness, beauty. We covered a lot.
We did cover a lot. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.